Hey everybody, Hector with Thermal Dog Outfitters here. I'm excited to have you here. Going to do a whole different kind of a video that I won't say I haven't done. I've done a bunch of different kinds of videos. This is actually going to be somewhat of a review, but a little bit different. And it's going to be on radios. You're going to say, hey man, what does that have to do with hunting and everything that we do? And believe it or not, I go do a lot of hunting, and I think some of you will agree. Hold on a second. You have your phones with you. As a matter of fact, I have another phone over there. That you're out there, and sometimes the signal just doesn't work. And so you're wanting to talk to somebody or call somebody or, hey man, come pick me up. I got something. And guess what? Nobody's answering. Also, if you're a person that's a prepper and you want to know a lot of hunters are, I guess, you know. But anyway, if you're a prepper, you want to know what kind of comms to do. You want to communicate with other people. Or if you're a small group of people that, hey man, shit hits the fan type scenario. Hey, how do I communicate with other people? What's the best options that's right now legal and what's cost-wise, all these different things. I really wanted to know. So I decided that I was going to go ahead and look into it and do some research. So here we are. Well, again, welcome to Thermal Dog Fitters. I appreciate that you're here. If it's the first time, man, I'm excited you're here. If you're coming back, thank you for hanging out with me as long as you have. I really appreciate it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. Hey, you know what? It helps out the channel, and I appreciate it. So let's get started. So in preparation to kind of communicate with you and share with you what are the things that I found that actually work pretty good in the field. Whether you're hunting, whether you're prepping, whether you're trying to help out with the emergencies, if you're traveling down the road with family, whatever the case may be, in order to get prepared, I need to do some homework, and I did a lot of homework. And you know what? I needed some equipment, and here you go. There's some equipment. And I tell you what, I probably overdid it a little bit. I mean, I got things like CB radios. I already have a CB radio, but I wanted a hand unit so I can test. You know, I got things like FRS radios and GMRS radios, and you're going, what are all these different acronyms? You're going to learn about it. I also, you know, I had handhelds and GMRSs. I also got, I got some truck. I mean, some the ones you can mount in your vehicles. Here we go. Here we go. So we got some Midland, you know, pretty tried and true company. I got some a bigger, higher wattage units for base stations. Boy, ham radios. I think I overdid it, but I overdid it because I want to know and I want to be able to test it, and I don't want somebody telling me, you know, that hey, this is the best thing or whatever the case may be. But and I was just able to, so I had the luxury of it, and some of it I was able to barter, so it worked out pretty good. So let's talk about it. Hey, Hector, you know what? I want to be, you know, I'm a hunter. Let's go with hunter. I'm a hunter, or you know, I want to take the kids someplace, and they're a little bit further away than, you know, a couple of 100 yards, a couple of yards, we're in the woods or whatever the case may be. I want to be able to communicate. And you know what I found? Sometimes the phone, it just doesn't work when you're out in boony somewhere, okay? So you can't call anybody, no signal. So how do you communicate? Well, I'm going to start off with some of the basics. One of the basics, the easiest ones that are out there, they call them bubble wrap radios, because you find them at Walmart, you find them at Target, you find them at anywhere, Cabela's, you know, Bass Pros, Academy Sports, you name it, you can find these little bubble wrap radios. I picked up, I think, a pair of these for about 25, 30 bucks at Academy. So they're simple FRS radios. Guess what? You don't have to have a license for this. The license comes with this radio. You can get on it, start talking, and give it to the kids. Let them run around. They can talk with each other, whatever the case may be. You can communicate. Simple, cheap method of doing it. There's different versions of it. There's a little bit higher upgrade, but that's because this one you can actually plug in an earpiece and be able to talk to somebody. You can do the same thing with this one, but this one has the NOAA, the weather, you know, whatever the case may be. You're going to spend, you know, 25, 30 bucks, 50 bucks for a pair, 100 bucks for a pair. Has a little few more options, right? But guess what? The distance is still the same. These are about a half-watt radio. I think half-watt radio? Yeah, I think that's what they are, half-watt radio, which means half-watt doesn't get you a whole lot of distance. Half a mile to a mile if you're lucky. I don't care if the packaging says, in fact, oh, there's a package. This is 40 miles. You ain't getting 40 miles on these radios. You're not getting, you know, that's what I get 36 miles is what they told me, 16 miles on this one. Let me tell you, here's the mountain. Now let me take that back. if you go straight line of sight, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. You're going to get about half a mile to a mile. The way they figure out that you're going to get all that mileage is, here's a mountain, and you're on top of it. Here's another mountain, and your buddy's on top of that one. And you're shooting straight across. There's nothing in between you. And it's a perfect clear night. Emphasis on night. And you might get lucky and hear them. And that's probably how they come up with these. I don't know. I don't know how they do that testing, but I guarantee you half a mile to about a mile is the best you're going to do on these things. Unless you're in the desert, maybe a little bit. I don't know. You might get a little further. But that's what the tests have shown me. So, and these are personal tests that I ran out and did. So, not a whole lot of distance, okay? So as long as you're okay, but these work great when I'm in the blind. I don't want to use that one. I want to use this one with a headpiece and say, hey, buddy, I just got a deer. I'm over here. I'm only a couple hundred yards away from each other. We can talk to each other. There's somebody in another blind, bow hunting, whatever the case may be. All right. So with that being said, what's the next step up from there? Hey, Hector, I don't get a lot of distance with that. I want to be able to communicate with with some friends, or whatever the case may be. Well, the next one would be the old tried and faithful Breaker 19. Baby, Smokey, where you at? Remember those old times? So here's one. Cost me about $40, $50 to get this, to order this one. But what's nice about them, it's a CB. You know what? You get 40 channels on it. The reality is 40 channels, you're only going to get about 3-4 miles of distance on these. There's only about 4-watt radio. So it's not a whole lot of long distance on them. Times have changed a lot. And there's some people that get on here and they just talk, and some of the things they say, you probably don't want your kids to get on there at all. So they've got a little bit of bad rap because of that. So, but it's just people, right? People cause that. So not as many people use the CB anymore, but a lot of people do. And oh, by the way, a lot of this stuff is a lot of off-roaders also, by the way. This is some good information for you as well. So you're not going to get a whole lot of distance with these, but you know what? A couple miles, if that's all you need, then you're fine. Again, about $40, $50 for a handheld unit. You can get one for the vehicle. Some of the old styles have upper, lower side by it. I forgot. I don't have all the 100% details. I know you can go up probably to about 10, 12 watts on those, on some of those side bands, right? I know some people are going to say, hey, Hector, I use the linear and I can get out really far. Hey, you can use a linear, it doesn't mean it's legal, right? So just be aware of that. Trust me, I know I used those when I was a young kid and talked to the truckers, and we had a linear. So now we talked about FRS and we talked about CBs. I'm going to move these out of the way. I'm going to move these out of the way for right now, okay? Move the CB out of the way as well. So the next, there's going to be another radio. It's in between there. It's called MURS. I didn't order one because that one I wasn't even interested in. It's only like about 2 watts, I believe. It's not a whole lot of wattage, and it only has 5 channels. Okay, FRS has 22 channels. CB has 40 channels. So 5 channels. I mean, it's just not enticing to go spend the money and get a radio. I believe it's VHF, so it cuts through a little bit better when you're in the woods than in FRS. But it's still about the same distance, okay, with 2 watts. So I didn't see the value on that, and I don't recommend spending a ton of money. Everybody's different. If that's something you want to do, take a look into it. So now I'm going to go up a little bit higher. Hector, I want to be able to reach out, okay? Well, tell you what, I want to be able to reach out and talk to the people that I want to talk to. I got some buddies, you know what? Yeah, I got hunting, but you know what? Let's say shit does hit the fan. You hear that all the time. You don't know what's going to happen. You lose power, whatever the case may be. How do you communicate with others? And you may have a small group that you're communicating with all the time. How do you communicate with those? You can't do it in FRS because they're too far. And let's say you're in a particular small city or whatever the case would be. I need to get to 10 miles or whatever, the other side of town. What are the best options for me? Well, one of the options that I've looked into, and I'm going to get into more afterwards because there's another one I want to talk about first. One of them is ham radio. Ham radio, I know that it's been around a long time. And oh, by the way, those who want to know what ham radio is, you have people that they're called hams, whatever, because that's what they operate. I believe it was Hamlin something was some of the first radios they created many moons ago, and that's where the hams derived from that particular radio, that name brand, and that's where hams got their names. I believe. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. Leave it in the notes down there. But that's kind of where it started. Hams came in. What's cool about hams is you have radios that you can talk all around the world. Okay. But it requires a license, and there's a test that you got to do for it, and a lot of people get scared off by that I'm not going to tell you that it's hard. It's about 350 question bank, and at 350 question bank, you get about, I believe it's about 35 questions. I could be wrong, 35, 50 questions. And if you pass them, you'll get your license. So, but there's a lot to learn, a lot to get training on to be able to feel comfortable running these radios. So you have to have a license to be able to operate them. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about those here in a second. So Hector, I don't want to take a test. You know, it's too much for me, and it is for a lot of people. They just don't want to. So it's not as enticing for them. They just want to be able to communicate a little bit further without having to go through all that problem. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But so what option is there? I found an option, and it's an option I like a lot. It's probably the best option I've seen out there. And I've seen a lot of groups like off-roaders have gone to this. They have gone to GMRS. That's the General Mobile Radio Service. I believe that's it, right? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So the General Mobile Radio Service, what's cool is you're using FRS channels too, but you're limited to 2 watts over here, right? That's kind of what I told you. 4 watts on the CB. GMRS, you have different options. You have, just like CB, handhelds, or you have radios that you can put in your vehicles, right? So this is a GMRS. This is GMRS. These are about 5 watt radios, okay? About 2 to 5 watts, about 5 watt radio. This is a 40 watt radio. You can go up to 50 watt radios, which means you can put up more power out so you can communicate, get it a little bit further. So let's talk about that. I'm going to talk about the handheld units first. This is a BTECH, BTECH GMRS 1, I think, something like that. So it's about a $60 radio. I like it. I ordered this, and I did a test, and I hooked up my 40 watt as a home base. I hooked up and I went on the road and was talking on this one. I got about 3.5 miles into town before I lost signal. So nice distance on this radio. So 3.5 miles through a bunch of trees and stuff, and and obstructions, houses, things like that. So really nice radio for about $60. So GMRS. What's cool also, I could go up to 50 watts, or in this case it's a 40 watt radio, but I can go up to 50 watts. And oh, by the way, when this thing, I lost the distance, like I said, I bought one for the truck, okay? And it's Midland. It's the Micro Mobile. It's a 15 watt radio. And what was cool, I put this radio down, and I was talking to my wife on the 15 watt. I got to about 9 miles. I was on the other side of town, on the north side of town, and I was still talking to my wife just fine. And that was with 15 watt radio talking to the 40 watt radio. So I'm really curious to see what a 40 watt to 40 watt or 50 watt, you know, to 40 or 50, whatever, how much further I would get. The tests I've seen so far on quite a few YouTube channels is as much as 30 some odd miles on the 50 watts. I think there was a GMRS 51 or something like that. I forget what it is. BTECH, made by BTECH, and on those tests they were getting about 30 miles. So that was pretty impressive. Over 20 miles on the Midland 40s, and that I had saw, and the 15s about 10, 12 miles. So my point is, I'm getting a long distance with those, right? Here's another exciting thing about those radios as well. When I'm making those communications, and I don't want to confuse anybody, it's on simplex, which means there's no repeaters. I just simple talking radio to radio. Okay, so same frequency talking to radio, and I can get those long distances, which is really awesome. Well, something that GMRS has in common with ham, without having to take a test, is a use of repeaters. If there's repeaters in the area, you can use repeaters on the GMRS just like you can on the hams. Different repeater systems, but if there's GMRS repeaters in the area, this is the cool part. So let's say this is a mountain, okay, and you're on this side of the mountain, and your friend's on this side of the mountain. Straight across, you can't talk to each other because it's just a big giant obstruction. It's a mountain, okay, but you could put a repeater on the top of it, and what happens is basically you communicate to that repeater, and that repeater communicates to them. So it goes in one frequency and comes out another one, and communicates to the other radio, so they're able to receive all the information that you're sending. Which means that you may get to a repeater on this 40 watt 20 miles away, and or 30 miles away, and then the person, you'll be able to reach the person another 40 miles, 50, 60 miles away from you, even more so, even further, because of those repeaters. There's plenty of repeaters all over the place. You just got to look them up. So with that being said, is distance. It's a big deal to me, right? Low cost, distance. So GMRS, I have found, is the best option, because let me tell you how you get it. By the way, you do have to have a license with GMRS. The difference is, the way you get a license with GMRS, you just go online to the FCC website and say, hey, I want a GMRS license. They said, okay, you fill this information out. Simple. Whoa, whoa. I did it. I filled it out on a Sunday, and I had it on a Tuesday, about 48 hours. And all I did was fill out the application, and I had to pay a $70 fee, and that license is good for 10 years. They give you your call sign for 10 years. And oh, by the way, unlike him, where you have to get a license for every individual that operates, with our FRS, that license covers my home. So my wife wants to get out here and talk back and forth. My daughter, whatever the case may be, we're able to sit here and communicate using that one call sign that off of that license. So it's for the household, so which is really cool, okay? And it's for 10 years. So that's GMRS. I'm pretty excited about GMRS and what it can do, what it can accomplish. So you can get some good distances and have some good communications. Whether you're on a ranch, it's a big ranch, you'll be able to get to everybody. You can give them the radio, won't have any problems talking to them. Or whether you're, shit hits the fan scenario, prepper, doomsday, whatever the case may be, you know what? You're able to communicate with others. Even if power goes down, repeaters go down, and you can't use repeaters to get super long distances. Even if power goes down, you can get on your FRS, on your GMRS radio, and get 20, 30 miles or whatever the case may be, and to communicate with other people around you. Pretty cool. So, but again, you have to make sure you have the right radio, the right wattage, the right antenna. You got to do a little bit of homework on that one. Not a big deal, but it's really simple to get. So, GMRS to me is kind of the way to go. So, but I don't want to leave the ham radio out, okay? Oh, and by the way, these GMRSs, what's cool about it is you have the same 22 channels. I'm sorry, I didn't say it. Same 22 channels the FRS has. Plus, it has another 8 repeater channels that are already pre-programmed in here. You just got to put the codes for those repeaters to connect to them to be able to get further. That's a whole other conversation, and I'm going to do a different video just to explain that. But very cool. So you have extra channels that you're able to use to communicate further. Guess what? Now we get it. The last thing I want to talk about is the ham radio. Ham radio, to me, it's a pretty cool deal. Okay, if you want to be able to get some long distances even further. And oh, by the way, what's cool? I told you, half a watt, 4 watts, 2 watts on the 4 watts on the CB, 2 watts somewhere I think on the MURS. Somebody correct me if I'm off, and maybe up to 4 or 5 watts. And then the GMRS all the way from 5 watts all the way up to 50 watts max. With ham, I don't know what the max is. I've heard of 100, 200, 300. I mean, you're going to get out with ham. Ham gives you a lot more privileges that the FCC gives you, and that's why you have to make sure that you understand the tests you're taking, what you're studying, so that you know how to maximize that. You don't destroy your own radios, use the right antennas, all these different things, right power sources. There's a lot to it, and I don't want to overwhelm anybody. You can learn it, okay, but you have to pass the test to be able to get that. So you have to study for it. And then the expense for the tests aren't very expensive. They're a lot cheaper even than the GMRS. But once you get these, now you can communicate on all kinds of different radios, which is really cool. So I believe with a technician's license, you can do VHF, UHF, and then if you want to move up to the general license, you can go up to HF as well. And there's one more license that you have more privileges, but I don't think you need that. So with that being said, what's good about these? There's different radios that are out there. You can get radios as low as $25. This little radio right here, it's called a BaoFeng, very controversial radio. But what's cool about this, I can program this radio for all these frequencies right here, which is really cool. So I can talk to all these frequencies if I have a GMRS license, right? Wrong. This radio is not licensed by the FCC. So even though I can program all those in an emergency, I could sit there and talk. Nobody's going to tell you you can do it in an emergency. Absolutely. You can program it so you can talk to any of those radios, or call emergency services, or whatever the case. You can do that in here. I don't recommend you start calling or talking on these just for the fun of it, because the only ones that can really operate these are ham radio operators, and then only in the frequencies of ham that the hams are authorized to do so. Even a ham cannot get on here and program it for an FRS or a GMRS and start talking. They have to have a GMRS license. Okay, and oh, by the way, because the antenna comes off, FCC says you can't even use this as an FRS radio. If something happens, it's an emergency, and you're hearing somebody, I'd be calling them and letting them know to come save you for whatever the emergency is, right? So these radios are awesome. So, and by the way, you have base stations or car mounted ones, whatever you want to do. So I have given you a lot of information, okay? And I don't mean to confuse everybody as to what is the best option as far as comms. I have decided to go with GMRS because the license is easy. Get on the computer, fill it out, pay your $70, and you'll have it within a few days. And then you get on there, start talking to anybody. There's some requirements. Make sure you do your call sign within so many minutes, 10, 15 minutes, whenever. So, and there are a lot less restrictions than with ham, which takes a little bit more to get. So that's what I've decided to go with for our comms and our local comms here with the group that we have as well. So if you have some questions, please let me know. I'm going to do some other videos breaking these down a little bit, giving you a little bit more details on the ham, more detail on the GMRS. I do not have my ham radio license as of this moment, but I am working on it, and I am going to get it because I want to be able to test it and share with you what I found. So again, in a shit hits the fan situation, if you're out hunting, if you're out in camp, if you're out just on the trail, off-roading, great ways to communicate, lots of options, and hope that helps you out in deciding which way you're going to go. Me, GMRS, WRJW669 call sign. So if you ever hear me out there, say hello. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. I hope this helps you out on your comms. Hang out. We'll be doing some more stuff like this. Talk to you later.